So, John, welcome.
Nice to be with you.
Now, when I opened the book, the very first word that I saw just warmed the cockles of my heart. The very first chapter and the very first chapter heading, the very first word is the word process. Now, a lot of people think of the Constitution in terms of elements that make it up, but really what the Constitution defines is a collection of processes. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean, what made you make that the center point of your first paragraph of the book?
I did so because it seems to me that actually there's a little history. Let me get a little context to it. When I wrote Worse Than Watergate, I didn't really write it for the 2004 election, but I certainly thought that the issue in that book, the central issue in that book, which was the secrecy of the Bush administration, the excessive secrecy, if you will, would end up being an issue in 2004. To my surprise, and as well as to the surprise of the editorial writers at the New York Times, for example, Kerry didn't mention it. The week before the election, one of the editorial writers who had that column space they give editorial writers at the bottom of the New York Times said in an editorial, in essence, Mr. Kerry, haven't you noticed the excessive secrecy in the Bush administration? And he obviously hadn't. So after the campaign, I decided I didn't call the candidate, but I called the top of the campaign to ask him, why in the world did you not, throughout this campaign, mention the fact that Bush has been an excessively secret president? I mean, it truly is worse than anything we've ever had. And the answer I got was very simple. I said, well, our consultants tell us that this is a process issue, and we didn't think the candidate should get into process issues. Now, I said something to the effect, well, process is the name of the game in Washington. How can you not mention it? And after that, I began talking to some congressional people about the 2004 campaign, too, and asked them why they hadn't raised process issues. Process being the machinery of government, how its decisions are made. In other words, those things that we all either learn in civics or learn from just being Americans about the fact that there is a tripartite government out there that is supposed to operate in the public interest. A lot of people won't know, for example, what a motion to recommit in the House is, how those procedures work. They won't know what a cloture vote is in the Senate to cut off a filibuster, but they sure get it when the system is working in their interest or failing to work. So I started asking congressional candidates as well, and I got a very similar sort of response, that their consultants had told them that they shouldn't raise process issues, that they looked wimpy if they complained, for example, if they had been cut out of the deliberative process in the House by the Republicans, the fact that they weren't allowed to attend conference committee sessions where the House and Senate work out their differences, that the Republican chairman would literally not hold a conference meeting if a Democrat showed up to participate. It went on and on. So it was so striking to me, and I actually at one point, as I was working on this book, went back and looked at the Democratic and Republican platforms back as far as 1960, only to discover in 2004, for the first time ever, any national party doesn't mention any process matters at all in their platform. Not that platforms are that important. More important being the fact that they decided to exclude any reference to these mechanics of government, and the fact that the Republicans are absolutely giving them their lunch on it. They are gaming the system. They are playing the process to their disadvantage, and for them not to raise it, to me, is outrageous. Thus, I start that chapter with process matters.